Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Just in the Nick of Crime. And do we have something to talk about today? We're going to talk about this guy, Austin Drummond. We have some insane jailhouse interviews and another interview. Title's a little misleading. Sorry about that, guys. Clickbaity, whatever. That apparently he called a friend of his and basically kind of said what he wanted the media to hear. And we're going to listen to it. We're going to break it down. And it is some absolutely insane stuff. And at the end of it, you can decide whether or not you believe him. All that said, if you don't know who I'm talking about, let me just give you a very, very brief rundown on this case. So Austin Drummond was the man who was arrested for the murder of 4 people, an entire family, right? He then went on the run for about a week. This happened in Tennessee, in Jackson area of Tennessee. Went on a run for a week. He eventually was captured, and now he is back in prison. Now, he had just served 13 years for armed robbery. Then he got out. He really shouldn't have gotten out. That's a different video altogether, though. But basically got out, and he had another charge, I think a firearms charge. He then got a girl pregnant who he was a correctional officer where he worked. And all of this then went down. So she's expecting his baby. It's just really quite a mess. It's very Tennessee of it too. And I live in Tennessee, so I can say that. You guys can't, but I can. That being said, let's just kind of get into it. Let's just get to the phone call. We're going to get right into it. We're going to start breaking it down. Okay.
Yep, it's going.
All right, this is Austin Drummond. I would like to address the media who have been reporting on me and the current tragedy. I definitely did not handle the situation right by Riley, but I was afraid. The reason for my fear is the same reason for the tragedy, and that is because I am an undercover informant working alongside the Lake County District Attorney's Office, the FBI, the ATF, the Justice Department, and Tennessee Department of Corrections Contraband Interdiction Unit. I've been working with.
All right, let's pause. Let's pause there for a minute. So now he's just outed himself as being a CI, a confidential informant with the Tennessee Department of Corrections, the ATF, the FBI, the DOJ. Typically speaking, you're not working for multiple agencies, federal and state. You're working for one if you are a CI. But here's the thing. He's now sitting in jail, all right, for the murder of 4 people. And he's just outed himself as a CI. So one of two things is happening. One is he's lying. And this has now become part of the public record, by the way. And he happens to be telling the truth. That's another option. But either way, he's now just outed himself to all of his fellow inmates as a snitch. Let's continue.
Them since April to help bring down Vice Lord leadership, prison drug smugglers, dirty correctional, police, and probation and parole officers. This includes the deceased, Matthew Wilson, Adriana Williams, Braden Williams, and Courtney Rose, all of whom were prison drug smugglers. I was informing on all of them. Please fact check me. Allow me to address my past, which the media also reported on. As a teenager, I partied too much, and it got me in trouble. I did not, however, have any affiliation with any gang. In 2011, the burglary that was reported on was just me and my friend who went on the roof of our school to smoke a blunt on Super Bowl Sunday before the game because we were bored.
That's another good place to stop. So he has been known to be in a gang called the Vice Lords, which is a gang in prison. He's gotten himself in trouble, had infractions for helping to smuggle substances, if you will, into the prison. Now, my understanding is that his armed robbery was, I think, to a convenience store or something like that. He just said it was on the school for smoking a blunt on the roof of the school. Let me tell you something. You do not get 13 years for smoking a blunt on top of the school on Super Bowl Sunday. You don't get charged as an adult when you're 17 years old for committing a crime where you're just smoking some weed on the roof of your school and they're calling it burglary. No. Let's just continue.
There's more, but all minor misdemeanor stuff until the gas station, which I robbed with a BB gun while blacked out on Xanax. To this day, I do not remember it. I was charged as an adult and given 10 years at 85%, after which I made comments about the jury that had no real intent, but I was given another 3 years. My total sentence was 13 years for crimes committed at the age of 16 and 17, where no one was hurt. I even cooperated at that time with an investigator, Kevin Jones of the Jackson Police Department, and my lawyer, Joseph Howell, who was present to burn down drug dealers. This was supposed to keep me in juvenile court. They lied. Please remember to fact check me. So I entered the Tennessee prison system with no real street knowledge and no gang affiliation. The first 4 years were rough. I was victimized and used. The officers didn't care. They would put you in the hole for a week and then put you in another pod for another group of people to do the same thing. So after 4 years, I joined Vice Lord. These problems stopped and different problems arose. Towards the end of my sentence, I had managed to get away from the gang and was in a drug program. An officer boss at Northwest Correctional Complex made sexual advances which I refused, and he got me kicked out and put back around the gang. CO Voss was later fired and charged for raping an inmate. Please fact check me. After being placed back around the gang, I was used to get contraband in. One day there was a major drug bust in the kitchen where stuff was found all over. I was blamed for everything. There are cameras all over, but the prison officials refused to allow me to see these videos because it would have incriminated them and exonerated me. This is one of my pending charges now. After this incident, I was placed on close custody level for violent inmates. I was the only inmate there for a nonviolent write-up. 1 month into being there, another vice lord threatened to stab me. Officers left the pod. I saw someone give him a knife, and he was putting on gloves, so I went on the offensive. This is where my attempted murder charge comes from. Everything I described is on camera. The incident was originally written up as just aggravated assault. I also was not indicted on this until 2 months after my release and 1 month after me and Caitlin started our relationship. That's correct. Contrary to what is being reported, me and Caitlin did not start any communication until 1 month after my release. The attempted murder occurred in August of 2023. I was released in September 2024 and indicted in November 2024. Me and Caitlin are both sure that I was only charged for it and that it was upgraded from aggravated assault to attempted murder in response to her quitting and dating me. Also, a couple of days before my release, I met with Assistant Warden Walton and Internal Affairs Logan Wilson, where I informed them of dirty officers and illicit activities inside the prison. They were and dating me. Also, a couple of days before my release, I met with Assistant Warden in November 2024. Me and Caitlin are both sure that I was only charged for it and that it was upgraded from aggravated assault to attempted murder in response to her quitting and dating me. Also, a couple of days before my release, I met with Assistant Warden Walton and Internal Affairs Logan Wilson, where I informed them of dirty officers and illicit activities inside the prison. They were and
I'm just going to pause here for a moment. There's a few things that he said that we can come back to. One is he said that, when he had that situation with, drugs being brought into the prison. So basically, for those of y'all who don't know, he got in trouble for bringing contraband, including, drugs into the prison where he was using drones. So people were doing drone drops to him and bringing it in. And he's saying that he wasn't allowed to see that video footage just a little bit ago. Wasn't allowed to see that video footage because it would implicate others and exonerate him. But then at the beginning, he said he's sitting here working, with the ATF, with the FBI, with the DOJ, with the Tennessee Department of Corrections and so many others to expose all these people. So you would think that he would have been able to see this footage and have a review. I'm just saying, if it were true. I mean, obviously, my opinion here is that he's just absolutely full of it. Absolutely full of it. That is my opinion. But he's sitting here when he's doing this, and this is my thoughts on this. Obviously, he called somebody. This was before he did the Nick Beres interview, which we're going to talk about here in a second, and I'll play parts of it as well. But before he did the Channel 5, Nick Beres interview on Channel 5, he did this with, I guess, a friend of his who he was wanting to basically control the narrative of the media, what was being put out there, prior to his arrest. And I'm sitting here thinking about this. This is very well put together. I got to give it to him. He's giving names, he's giving dates. There's not a lot of ums, ahs, pauses. It's a very straightforward story, and to me, it feels like he wrote it down. So, for example, just to be very candid with you guys, when I'm doing the YouTube shows, they're a lot more formal than if I'm talking on a live or doing a TikTok or video reel, whatever. And typically speaking, I use a teleprompter. Today is not one of those days. And I think if you look at like what I did yesterday, where I build and write my scripts so I don't forget things, and you look at today, where I'm not using one, you can really see the difference. And I think that with this particular situation, he's got it so buttoned up, all the I's dotted, all the T's crossed. Like, this is what I want to say. This is the story that I'm going with. And that's my opinion on this. But let's continue.
Also, a couple of days before my release, I met with Assistant Warden Walton and Internal Affairs Logan Wilson, where I informed them of dirty officers and illicit activities inside the prison. They were supposed to help me with my pending charges from the contraband situation in the kitchen. They did not. Sergeant Cochran and Unit Manager Spillers both knew of this meeting that took place. Again, fact check everything. After my release, I was fully devoted to my family. I had no affiliation with vice lords on the streets. The only contact was with inmates from the prison. I could go on and welcome any interview and or questions regarding anything I may not have mentioned that is in question. I'll now get to what I'm sure you all want to know, and that is my time working with the FBI, ATF, and Justice Department. I began working in April with the assurance of help with my pending charges. I had recently found out my Caitlin was pregnant and could not go back to prison. By the way, they were trying to give me 31 years between all my charges associated with the prisons. While working with federal agents, I conducted drone drops and drug buys. Drone drops in the prisons were allowed to go as long as there was no meth or cocaine. Anything else was allowed to go through. We never dealt with fentanyl, period. Over time, this raised suspicions of the vice lord leadership, and I was told the clear rules of the Justice Department to keep the investigation rolling. Federal agents gave me a wink, wink, nudge, nudge on what they have to do if they have knowledge of it, in quotations, knowledge of it. So I'll leave that where it is because it will come into play of this tragedy. Now it's time for some dirt. CO Michael Kane at Northwest Correctional Complex is friends of the DA in Lake County and is heard on a recorded call talking inside of the cell of the leader of the vice lord in Tennessee. On his cell phone, the inmate's cell phone, I mean. Federal agents have also heard hits put out and allowed inmates to be assaulted over recorded calls. This is the truth. It'll take some digging because they're trying to hide it. But again, fact check me. Now allow me to dive into the relationship with Matthew, Braden, Adriana, and Courtney. They were Caitlin's family who became my family. I took Adriana to the hospital to have her baby. I helped teach Braden to drive. I pushed him to do good in school. I paid Courtney's bills during hard times. Matthew was like a little brother to me. I tried to help him get clean off of the drugs. They were a part of the drug smuggling at Northwest before I ever met them, bringing in Suboxone strips to Brandon, Adriana, and Braden's dad, member of Caitlin's family, who I love very dearly. And I'm sorry to bring them into this, but Beres Childress warned me early on about Courtney to keep my distance. She even said someday she might try to set me up. They also saw Matthew with an ARP at one time, a while back. That will play into this case as well. An ARP is the type of weapon that the news reported I was allegedly carrying in all camo. Although Matthew, Courtney, Braden, and Adriana were family.
I'll pause there because I don't have the surveillance video pulled up, and I should have added it to this, but you could very clearly see that not only was he carrying a weapon, it was one that had a drum attached to it. And for those of y'all, because I know when I talked about this the first time when this all went down initially, in real time, we were like, what's a drum? Well, a drum is basically a high capacity magazine you can load basically in a circle. And that's what it looked like he was carrying. And the police were saying that he was armed and extremely dangerous based off this surveillance video that we all eventually saw. So he's saying that that he was allegedly carrying, but surveillance video shows that he was in fact carrying, just to point that out.
Were clear. I had to give everyone up. That included them. I hated doing it, but I had Caitlin, our daughter, our son on the way, and two disabled parents I had to be there for. I chose them, and I would do it again. I can't go into much detail, but I lost the phone that had correspondence between myself and federal agents when I was around Braden and Courtney, Matthew, and Adriana.
All right, so that's another point that I heard last night, and I really wanted to point out. There's a lot of things that are very convenient with this story. He's accusing, which I'm not saying that it's not true, right? He's basically accusing the four people that are no longer living, that are dead now, that he's accused of murdering. He's basically implicating them in crimes involving drug smuggling into the prison. And what I said last night when we were talking about this on a live was that while a 15-year-old who was the youngest of this, while a 15-year-old, it's not unheard of, obviously, for them to be involved in some type of substance. I mean, if you were in high school and you did any type of weed or whatever, you probably got it from somebody in your high school. So that's not uncommon. What I thought was kind of a little bit far-fetched was a 15-year-old participating in a very highly sophisticated drug drone drop into prison kind of a thing. The other thing that I find very convenient about this is that you heard what he just said. He lost the phone that showed that he had contacts with the FBI. Now, when you're looking at something like this, there's a few things going on here that kind of poke holes in that story. One is everything is on a cloud these days, right? So if he had phone calls, whatever, they should be there. But let's just say it was secure, right? He had it secure, so it wasn't backing up to the cloud. Well, at this point in time, all the FBI, DOJ, TDOC, TBI, ATF, all of these people are well aware of this story at this point. I mean, it made national news when we were on a manhunt for him. And so none of them have come forward saying, like, even privately, yeah, he's with us. Not only that, he ran, and he says that he ran, and we'll hear this in a minute in another thing, but he says that he ran because he was scared with what happened. And basically he's saying that he's innocent, that he's not. And he said that he's not an innocent man, but he's not guilty of what they're saying he did, which is basically murder. But then it seems to me, if you're scared, but you're a CI, why wouldn't you just go? I mean, again, he's working for five agencies right now, right? So why wouldn't you just go to one of those agencies and be like, hey, man, look, this is what happened. This is what went down. We got to move, or whatever the hell they do. And look, I've never been in this position, so it's easy for me to sit here behind my desk and say all of this. But I'm just saying a lot of it just doesn't really add up. Let's keep going.
He also had an uncle that worked TDOC for 20 years, and he found out like Caitlin was pregnant and could not go back to prison. By the way, they were trying to give me 31 years between all my charges associated with the prisons. While working with federal agents, I conducted drone drops and drug buys. Drone drops in the prisons were allowed to go as long as there was no meth or cocaine. Anything else was allowed to go through. We never dealt with fentanyl, period. Over time, this raised suspicions of the Vice Lord leadership, and I was told the clear rules of the Justice Department to keep the investigation rolling. Federal agents gave me a wink, wink, nudge, nudge on what they have to do if they have knowledge of it, in quotation, knowledge of it. So I'll leave that where it is because it will come into play of this tragedy. Now it's time for some dirt. CO Michael Cain at Northwest Correctional Complex is friends of the DA in Lake County and is heard on a recorded call talking inside of the cell of the leader of the Vice Lord in Tennessee. On his cell phone, the inmate's cell phone, I mean. Federal agents have also heard hits put out and allowed inmates to be assaulted over recorded calls. This is the truth. It'll take some digging because they're trying to hide it, but again, fact check me. Now allow me to dive into the relationship with Matthew, Braden, Adriana, and Courtney. They were Caitlin's family who became my family. I took Adriana to the hospital to have her baby. I helped teach Braden to drive. I pushed him to do good in school. I paid Courtney's bills during hard times. Matthew was like a little brother to me. I tried to help him get clean off of the drugs. They were a part of the drug smuggling at Northwest before I ever met them, bringing in Suboxone strips to Brandon, Adriana, and Braden's dad, member of Caitlin's family, who I love very dearly. And I'm sorry to bring them into this, but Beres Childress warned me early on about Courtney to keep my distance. She even said someday she might try to set me up. They also saw Matthew with an ARP at one time, a while back. That will play into this case as well. An ARP is the type of weapon that the news reported I was allegedly carrying in all camo. Although Matthew, Courtney, Braden, and Adriana were family, the feds were clear I had to give everyone up. That included them. I hated doing it, but I had Caitlin, our daughter, our son on the way, and 2 disabled parents I had to be there for. I chose them, and I would do it again. I can't go into much detail, but I lost the phone that had correspondence between myself and federal agents when I was around Braden and Courtney, Matthew, and Adriana. Matthew also had an uncle that worked TDOC for 20 years. I don't know how, but they found out I was an informant. I'll leave that there for now, too. Fast forward to after my arrest. Somehow people in the
Guys, real quick, this has nothing to do with this, but I'm gonna let you guys know some breaking news, and as soon as this gets over, I will jump off after we do this live and finish it up and do some videos and bring you guys some updates on it. But there is an active shooter at the University of Tennessee in Chattanooga. They're currently locked down. We don't have a lot of information right now, but just letting you guys know that there's an active shooter situation in Chattanooga. We'll continue this going on, and I'll bring you all updates on that as soon as we have them.
investigators have gotten the idea that the gang I was an informant against ordered me to do this unthinkable act, which is not true. I have offered to take a polygraph, whether or not I was told, threatened, forced, or asked to do this by anyone or group, because I was not. They didn't allow that, because if that's not the case, then what is the motive of a federal informant to go and plan to kill 4 people? Also, during my few weeks of incarceration, I was only allowed to see my lawyer over a Zoom call where we couldn't clearly understand each other, and he was unaware I did not want to waive my 14-day rule, and I'm eager to have my preliminary hearing. Also, during my court case, correctional officers went into my cell and took my legal papers to and from my lawyer. I have been restricted phone access, denied what all other inmates have, tablets and TV time, and mocked as dead men walking, and told that I might as well kill myself. I implore investigative reporters to take this information.
You have 3 minutes remaining on this call.
I implore investigative reporters to take this information and seek the truth. I am not an innocent man, but I am not guilty of what I'm charged with. I accept any questions and interviews.
All right, so that's basically the end of that one. And now, what we'll do is I'll play another short one from Nick Beres. That's in Nashville. This one is not just right because they kind of interrupt a little bit in it, but it's pretty short, so we'll just let you guys hear it and kind of go from there.
Innocent of charged with, yes, sir. I'm not an innocent man, but I'm not guilty of what they charged me with.
Of course, you would expect a man potentially facing the death penalty to say that.
And by the way, real quick, this is a completely different call than what you just heard from the other one. So the way I understand it is Nick Beres had this call, and this call was to another friend. The first one that we heard, that was longer. That is my understanding. So again, it's the exact same verbatim phrase, which is why I think that he had time to put this together, write it down, to keep his story and his thoughts straight. But yeah, let's keep going.
I offered to take a polygraph.
The 28-year-old Drummond admits to a long criminal record dating back to his teenage years and was a one-time member of the Vice Lords gang. But he says he did not kill Adriana Williams, Braden Williams, Matthew James Wilson, or Courtney Rose, whose bodies were all found in Lake County on July 29th.
I had no reason to hurt these people. They were my girlfriend's family who had became my family. I took Adriana to the hospital to have her baby. I helped teach Braden to drive. Matthew was like a little brother to me, man.
Drummond was on the run for several days after the murders. Locals in Northwest Tennessee feared a killer was on the loose, and it made national headlines. If Drummond didn't murder the 4 victims, then why did he run?
I did not handle the situation right by running, but I was afraid.
And here's why. Drummond says after another arrest earlier this year, he cut a deal with the Lake County District Attorney, FBI, and ATF to work as a confidential informant.
During my time working for them, I helped uncover drug dealers selling multiple kilos at a time of cocaine, also drug traffickers delivering pounds of meth. We identified dirty law enforcement and correctional personnel and tapped Vice Lord leadership phones.
Drummond says he learned that his cover had been blown the day of the killings, and that is why he ran.
I was afraid because I knew bad things happened, and I was afraid that because I was an informant, things would go wrong. Things would happen to me.
We did ask the district attorney about Drummond's claim that he was working as a confidential informant. The DA said he could not comment at this time. We should learn much more about the case against Drummond at a preliminary hearing that's scheduled for early September. Nick Beres, News Channel 5.
All right. So basically the DA has come out since then and said that they are basically very certain that he is the murderer on this, although they've not commented on the CI, but we do know that it's part of the records. Now, a couple things real quick. These 2 videos were done. Obviously, one was Nick Beres, Channel 5 News here in Nashville. He doesn't really do main social media, but he is on Facebook, and he is a great follow, especially when it comes to stuff like this. So I'm going to encourage you guys to go to Facebook and follow him there. It's Nick Beres, Beres. And then also the first one was done by a mutual of mine on TikTok. Her username is the Arlie, and I put a link to her TikTok in the notes to this video. So if you're watching it on YouTube, you can go follow her there. That being said, to give you guys a little bit more update on the mass shooting or the active shooting situation at University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. Apparently, students and staff were urged to run, hide, fight. An alert that was issued this morning. Security has urged people to avoid the campus. They said that there's an active shooter, or believed to be an active shooter, reported in the library of the UTC campus. So, anyways, somebody asked, Michelle asked, why would they have not answer whether or not he's working? Because it's an active investigation. That's why. So typically when stuff like that, they just we don't comment at this time. They're probably still trying to get everything together, and they might be using that information to put additional charges on there, or maybe they're really trying to vet it and see if it's actually true. Give them the benefit of the doubt on that one. So that being said, guys, I'm going to jump off real quick and do a little bit of research real quick and give you all an update on the active shooting situation going on in Tennessee. And I will be back shortly with this particular situation. Keep following. We are expecting another interview coming out of this, probably from Nick Beres, maybe a couple other people here in the near future. This case is far from over. He still hasn't said why he left the baby in the front yard. He actually told Nick Beres that he wasn't ready to talk about that. And there's just a lot more to this. This is a very strange case. It is definitely more layers to it with his calls. And the other thing that's interesting is that I don't know who his lawyer is, but somebody, honestly, I'm not a lawyer, but somebody basically needs to tell him to stop talking, because none of this is going to help him, whether he's a CI or not, whether that part's true or not. I personally don't believe it's true, but let's say that it is. Well, he's, again, just outed himself as a snitch in jail, in prison. And that's not going to go over very well. So he's done that very publicly at this point in time. And the other option is that, well, he's lying under oath and he's got nothing. I guess he's got nothing to lose because they're going after the death penalty for him. So that being said, make sure to hit the follow button, whichever platform you're watching on. If you are watching on YouTube and it's your first time here, please follow. I'm on a journey to 5,000. I'm like 2,500 people away. I'm sorry, 50,000. I'm like 2,500 people away from hitting that 50,000 goal. I feel like it's been slow lately, so I'm trying to do a little bit more here. And anyways, yeah, please consider following. That being said, I'll get you guys some updates on that. And lastly, another big thing happening today. Eric Menendez, as we speak, is sitting with the parole board in California. We should have an answer on what's going to happen with him today as well. And I'm covering that every step of the way. And so, of course, make sure to follow. I will be updating that one on every channel, every platform once we have that information. That being said, guys, have a great afternoon. Thanks for hanging out. And I'll be back shortly.